Hi there. Thank you so much for listening to Grounded in Maine today. My name is Amy Fagan, and my guest today is Mark Ellwood. And Mark's business is called Pace Productivity, and we are talking time management and also a little stress management today. I'm excited about this because, things are a little stressful these days. But Mark, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I'm thrilled to learn what you have to share with us because I know there's new stuff for sure.
It's a delight to be here, Amy.
Yay. And so you are a time management pro? Like do you
Guru, expert,
guru? Oh,
professional.
guru. Yes. You have been studying this for years.
Mhm.
Okay. So can we start off by why? I'm just curious. I'm always curious about that. I schedule myself way too tight. I had the today off and I had four meetings and I had to go to the Social Security office and like all these things and like I feel like I didn't get anything accomplished. I'm really bad about that. And it's not like I also have a really hard time with downtime. So this is where you're going to come in really helpful, I think.
Well,
So,
I can tell you two stories. The first is, you talk to coaches and professionals and such, and they say, oh, I was really in a tough space and I was, divorced or, addiction problem, whatever, and I saw the light and I did a lot better. And now I'm telling the whole world about this thing. That wasn't the case with me. Although there was a time in my life where I didn't have a job. I didn't have a girlfriend or anything like that. I was sort of struggling a little bit. I was 11 years old and I was delivering newspapers. And the thing is, on the weekend, and maybe people don't know much about newspaper delivery boys except what they see in old movies. But anyway, you would show up at the depot, which was in this Mrs. Smith's basement of her apartment building, and all these bundles of newspapers would get delivered there. So myself and seven or eight other boys would stick all these papers in our bags and trundle off and deliver them to people's houses. Well, on the weekend, the newspaper came separately from a colored magazine that was published. And you had to deliver the colored magazine along with the newspaper. So you'd put one inside the other. And I watched these other boys putting one inside the other, and I thought, oh my gosh, it's taking them forever. And so I figured out how to do that really quickly. This is classic time and motion stuff. And
11 years
so I
old.
wanted to figure out how to the fastest way. I bet I could still do it today to get those inside. Well, all right. Then I'm trundling along with all these big, heavy papers and these newspaper bags. And I thought, well, it's time to invest in technology. So I bought a wagon to help deliver those papers. Then I got into operations research. I'm 11. This is the idea of how you schedule tasks and so forth. Imagine pulling up your wagon on one side of the street, but you've got to deliver some papers to the other side of the street. So do I take two papers over with me, or do I take five, or come back, or walking back and forth and so on? So I was making these little calculations as a kid to make my time as efficient as possible. Then there's ways of sort of tossing the paper onto somebody's porch underhand without it sort of splaying all over the place. But you can also fold it up and throw it from a farther distance. Well, how much time do you spend folding the paper and
Mhm.
how many steps is that going to save? So another interesting sort of productivity calculation there. And then the big one, batching tasks. So you try and do things together that are sort of like-minded, I suppose. I had to go and collect from people every single week. I'd knock on their door. Hi, it's Mark from the newspaper. I'm collecting, and they'd pay me in cash. Well, my last route, I had about 100 people to collect from. That was a lot on Tuesday nights. So I split the route in two. I did half on week 1 and 3, and the other half on weeks 2 and 4, thus saving myself some time. And people
Mhm.
didn't mind paying for 2 weeks. So that was a kind of an efficiency thing that I did. There was one other, which is people had the option to pay at the office, kind of like we do now, right? You pay everything remotely. And I suppose I could have done more of that at the time. But the trade-off, of course, is that you get better tips if you collect from
In
people
person,
personally.
for sure.
So that was kind of my introduction to productivity, thinking about how to make my paper route as efficient as possible. So I was spending as little time on that as possible and as much time on friends and sports and schoolwork and so
Right.
on. So
And
that's
can
kind
I
of how I
ask,
got my grounding.
yeah, can I ask also, like, what was your motivation for this? Because I'm imagining, so I know that the weekend newspapers are at least double the weight. But I also know that kids like to do fun things on the weekends.
Yeah, I had always I wanted to have a paper route. I had a really tiny one at first, and when I first moved to the city, and then I got a bigger one, and I don't know, I just liked the idea of being an entrepreneur, I guess, and earning money that I could control. So that was important to me, having control over my time and having control over my income. And it paid off. I mean, I bought a house when I was 26, not just from the newspaper savings, but
Right.
all that kind of added up over time. So I guess I was always sort of thinking about productivity. Just some people have it and some don't, and that's fine. But you can teach these things if you give people systems and techniques.
I could have used you when I was 11, man.
Well, my second story, if I might. So when I was an adult, we were all at work at a big corporation, and meetings were always late getting started. This company, it seemed like it was part of the culture, starting late. And well, here's me, Mr. On time guy. I found it very frustrating.
Sure.
So I looked around the room one time while we were waiting for someone to arrive, and I said, if you add up your salary and his and hers and mine, and how much time we spend waiting, boy, that would add up a lot. Or maybe you could keep track of that, or well, you could keep track of different things. And so there was a kind of an aha moment that went off in my brain to invent a small electronic device, kind of like a chess clock. Chess clocks, the time works down to zero, and there's only two of them. But I thought, well, what if you had a large number of clocks and only one could be on at a time, and the time would add up? So you'd add up how you spent your time. It's a series of stopwatches. And so I invented an electronic device. This is a newer version of it. It's called the TimeCorder. And so I got 400 of these. And basically, you turn it on, and every time you begin a new activity, you just press one single button and it tracks how you spend your time. Then you start a new activity and you track it again. So I was going to sell those products. It was the world's most popular product that everybody thought someone else should buy. That didn't work out. But I pivoted, and so I developed this business of conducting these time studies where I lend the devices out to people. They track their time for 2 weeks. They really love it. And I analyze the results and show people how to become more productive.
Okay, so it's part of like a coaching. So you,
You could say that, yes. I mean, I'm coaching is sort of one-on-one, right? So I'm dealing with large organizations, and it's not about the individual person. All our studies are anonymous, and that's why the employees really like them. But I'm looking at sales reps or bank managers or gas station managers to see what does that job look like, and we'll track a number of people and then see where the productivity opportunities are.
right. Okay. That I imagine all you have to do, well, I mean, all you have to do is like make people pay for it, right? And then
Yes.
be like, oh, whoa. I get that now. That, put money on it and that it makes it a lot clearer. Um, that's really cool. And so do you push the button when you're starting a new task and then do you push the same button again when you end the task?
Well, no, you push a new button for the new thing that you're on. So it's just one simple button. I often claim it's a little less complicated to use than a doorbell because it gives you audio, tactile, and visual feedback, and you just hit a new button every time you begin a new activity. So it's dead simple. You can learn to use it in about 5 seconds. That's on the long side. And then at the end of the day, you just turn it off and then you start the next day. It's better than an app for a whole bunch of reasons. It's tracking the things you're doing on your phone. It doesn't run out of batteries. It's giving you instant feedback. It's easy to use. So that's why it's better. The challenge is people go, oh, our employees aren't going to like it. Turns out employees really like it. We get a participation rate of about 94%.
Right.
So it's fun for people.
I'm sure there's some competition, going on, like who's going to be on time, who's going to, do like a pool, who's going to be late.
Right. So early on, I decided, oh, I'll keep a database of all these different client studies, and I'll find a way to sort of commonize the data so I could eventually write papers on it and do some research. So that's what I've done is try to look at 35 years worth of research and see what
Wow.
some of the patterns are.
Wow. That's gonna be fascinating. I mean, I'm not a numbers person at all. Anyone can tell that. But just the outcome sounds like it would be really interesting. Some people, I mean, I'm sure that you're that person that's like, ooh, let's look at all the little details.
Yeah, sort of numbers geek. Well, out there in the world, there's a lot of opinions. And, talk about facts and fake facts and news. But I won't get into all that. But I've always been grounded in real data, real research, real science. And I think that's what our lives are based on. And so there's a lot of time management authors who write about time management. It's kind of based on opinions and personal experience, and usually it's pretty good. But I'm trying to bring some science and data to that whole realm of time management.
Yeah. I mean, because yeah, I imagine that there are people that would say, well, that works for you. That's great. Or, something like that. But then, you're like, no, look, I've been studying this for 35 years.
Yep.
Your textbook.
Mhm. Well, I can tell you a little bit about my recent project because I've looked at managers, I looked at best time for meetings, I've looked at women and mothers of infants. We did a project in Australia of new mothers, but this one, what we know, because I go to these time use conferences, in the domestic realm, women are much more responsible for domestic tasks than men. They're spending more time on childcare, on cooking, cleaning, and shopping, and there's many Western countries. And so you can go and look at the research. It's quite consistent. Men
Hmm.
have caught up a little bit over the recent number of years, but women are still responsible for a larger portion of that domestic time. So I thought, okay, well, how about the workplace? And my colleagues who do these time use studies, they just kind of look at work as one big number of 8 hours per day. And I thought, well, I've got a lot of granular data on that. So what could I find out? So I took my database, I split it in two. So someone who was named Susan or Mary, they went into that database, and someone who was named Jim or Harold, they went into that one. So I created two different databases to look at it to compare men versus women.
Hmm.
And basically, I concluded that women are better at managing their time than men based on four distinct criteria. So
Can
I
you say
could,
that a little bit louder for the people in the back here, Mark?
yeah, so I found out that women are better at managing their time than men based on four criteria or four findings.
Awesome.
So for instance, the first of those was or is women actually spend fewer hours at work than men. Now, these are knowledge workers. These aren't hourly paid people in restaurants or manufacturing or whatever. But it's knowledge workers. People are doing sales reps and service reps and managers and so on. They work in offices.
Hmm.
I've got others in my database too, but that's the majority of them are doing sort of knowledge work. And so typically, the average amount of time spent per week is about 46 hours per week for knowledge workers. Now, that includes some personal time of about 3 hours per week because you're at work and you got to go for lunch or whatever. So whether it's in an office place or whether it's at home, people are spending some time on personal time. So the average is about 46 hours. But get this, men are at 48 hours, women are only at 45 hours. So there's a 3 hour difference between them. And the jobs are very similar. They're all doing these knowledge work type jobs. And so you wonder, why is that? Well, guess what? Guess who's got to go home and pick up children from daycare and cook meals and so on.
So
So
there's
women are
motivation to
finding
be more
ways, they're
efficient.
finding ways to work fewer hours so they can do those domestic tasks where they're uh, spending more time.
Hmm. Interesting. That's really cool. I mean, it's sure nice to hear.
Well, the second finding is probably the most profound. If you read time management books, they'll say, spend your time on your top priority activities. Well, all right, what are those? And um, there's something called the Eisenhower matrix. So it wasn't invented by President Eisenhower. He actually quoted a university dean, but it was sort of popularized by him. And then Stephen Covey came along and talked about this urgent, important matrix. So some things are urgent and not important, or not important and urgent, and so on. You get this little 2 by 2 matrix. And the idea is you should be spending your time on things that are important but not urgent. And so all time management books talk about that, but they don't define it. And I thought, well, okay, I've got data, I can define it. So it turns out when I begin my TimeCorder studies, I ask people, what activities are the most important that you need to be doing in your job? And I thought, oh, I've got that. So, because I've been asking them for years. And the idea is to sort of see if, what does a sales rep say? Do they think their job is about servicing clients or processing orders? Well, for sales reps, the number one thing is prospecting and getting new business. Okay, so I went through 13 different job types and looked at what they were telling us they were supposed to be doing, and then compared that to where they were spending their time. Turns out, for those top priority activities, it's only 20%. Well, the rest is travel and meetings and customer service and various things. But people are spending 20% on their top priority activities. Men are at 18%, women are at 22%. So women are spending a greater percentage of their time and working fewer hours on their top priority activities. Now, if you can get up to 30%, that's where you want to be. The average is about 20, with women a little bit more. So they're better at managing their time than men because they're spending more time on their top priority activities.
Okay. That's really interesting. I definitely when you were talking about those numbers, I was like, I feel like I don't well, and I'm in my head, I was thinking the top priority would be something that you're like really passionate about or something like that. But I think I might be misunderstanding because I'm like, I feel like I have zero time for that. But it's knowing the most, like the kids have to get up, the kids have to get to school, the meal needs to be made and stuff like that. And those are the priorities, or you're
Well,
talking about at work.
those are priorities at home.
You're talking about at
So
work.
we're talking about work. And so
Okay.
your job definition, your job description says what you're supposed to be doing. You're a
Right.
salesperson. You're meant to be selling. So it's interesting you said the word passion. Because indeed, what are we passionate about outside of work? Well, hopefully you're passionate about your calling, about what you do, whether you're an independent person or an entrepreneur or an employee, or you're running an organization. You hope that there's some passion there. And indeed, we should be spending our time on what we're passionate about. And outside of work, I mean, hopefully you're passionate about your family and your children and your spouse and so on, but you're also passionate about your hobbies, about maybe volunteering. Some people are passionate about their spiritual life, so you need to be spending your time on those for sure. And if you're getting taken away from those, you got to define what is your passion and spend your time on those things.
Hmm. Okay. And so then you're saying that at work, uh, m men tend to not
To
do.
spend Okay, so they said, here's what I'm supposed to be doing. Here's what's most important in my job. And the average is 20% of their time spent on those kinds of activities.
Mhm.
There's also administration and lunch and per travel time and meetings and so on. But it's the main stuff you're supposed to be doing. The
What is
average is 20%. Women are a little higher at 22, men are a little lower at 18%.
Wow. Gosh. And how long did you study this?
Well, I got 35 years of data from thousands of people and 500,000 hours of real-time data that people collected on the devices.
That's
So,
crazy. And these numbers, are these like area specific or is this worldwide?
kind of worldwide. It's largely North America. I've done time studies in about 43 different countries, but I would say about 80% of that is in North America. There's some Australia, uh, England, Western Europe, there's some, but another 40 countries, so it's quite substantial.
Wow. Wow. Oh my gosh. That's really interesting. Um, and so
There's
interesting that it's just,
another finding that people might find fascinating. How long does it take you to do stuff? So, you just spent 20 minutes on the phone with a customer dealing with a customer service problem, or you went to a meeting that was 45 minutes long, or whatever. So we can look at durations of activities. How long do they take? And the average in my studies, based on my methodology, is about 18 minutes. Well, men are at 22 minutes, women are at 16. So when they do things using the TimeCorder device, they're getting them done faster. Their phone calls are faster, their meetings are shorter, their travel trips are shorter. I mean, a whole bunch of things. So women are just getting stuff done faster than men on average.
cool. All right. I mean that's really interesting. I mean it's and we kind of I'm not going to say joke about it or say that women are more organized than men and stuff like that, but it's just like you were saying, like opinion or
Well, you can, and I'm trying to add
yeah.
some new wisdom to this world of time management because nobody's done it before. Now, you could say, well, why is that, right? So, briefly, there's a couple of reasons. One, well, we talked about women spending more time in domestic activities. So it's possible that that some of the skills that they've developed there or learned there are transferable to the workplace. So there's that. Um, and that they need to be more efficient because they've got to get home and take care of kids and so on.
Hmm.
Um, there's another idea that, and I didn't want to touch this one too closely, that maybe there's some brain differences if women are better at some types of cognitive skills and men are better at sort of visual things and so on. And so it's possible that this idea of organizing and such is more rooted in the female brain than the male brain. I'm going to leave that to others because it's a little tricky to look at. The research is hard to get into. So there's a possibility there that there's some brain differences that might lead to this.
Okay. I mean that sounds more like science than math and hmm.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
people have tried to look at it, but it's hard, right? How do you measure brain, how do you put people through a test and so on? So I looked at that. But anyway, the reality is women are on these measures that I've looked at, they're managing their time better than men.
Okay. Fascinating. And so this is all right, we're talking time management and now this came from 11 years old. Like you've been doing this since you were 11.
Well, I've been a productivity guy. I invented the device when I was about 32 years old or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
But I mean,
um,
you've had sort of been working the numbers.
yeah, I think, as I said, some people get it, some don't. Some people struggle with time management. And so, what is time management? I write about this sometimes. It's kind of an umbrella. Some people say, well, you can't manage your time. You can only manage your results and say, whatever. Um, but it's kind of a collection of a number of soft skills, planning, goal setting, overcoming procrastination, meeting management, email communication, filing. All this is sort of a collection of skills. I think some people have it and some don't. You can teach it, and I've taught it to people. There's some very specific techniques, but some people are just super organized. If you talk to CEOs of organizations, men or women, they get it. I mean, they're smart in a number of different ways, but they're really good at focusing on their top priority activities for sure. And so when we've asked them to track their time, if some of the men said, no, I don't need this. I'm already organized. I'm doing a study of senior executive women, and some of them have taken interest. But at that high level, people are really good. So what we want to do is emulate them. What are the things that you and I can do in our day-to-day lives to just get a little more organized or to spend our time a little bit better? And so I offer people tips and advice on how to do that.
Hmm. That's cool. So can you go over those skills again? Can you just say the skills again, the soft skills?
So it's an umbrella, right? Time management. So goal setting, daily planning, managing meetings, dealing with communication and email, overcoming procrastination, filing and keeping, track of all the data you've got and so on. Those are some of the big ones in the realm of time management.
Overcoming procrastination.
We
I
all procrastinate, right?
right.
And so, why do we procrastinate? Well, because things are far off in the distant future and, we've got lots of time and maybe they're not that important. But when something is important and urgent, to use Stephen Covey's term, then we get to do that stuff. Ah, my test is tomorrow. I better study tonight.
Mhm.
And so the risk, though, is that you run out of time and other things come up and so on. So the way to overcome procrastination is through better planning, so that you create a, a plot. I always thought that the best sort of planner in the history of the world was Santa Claus, right? He's got to deliver all those presents on Christmas Eve. That
Right.
he can't, put that off. So he's
No
got to figure.
dilly-dallying.
And for people who do Christmas, like buying presents for kids and cooking turkeys and so on, or people throw a party, you're planning that. Your deadline is, well, December 24th or the date of the party or the dinner thing or whatever you're doing. And so you got to work backwards. So some people are very good at doing that. And so you take those skills to plan for Christmas or whatever it might be and apply those to other areas of your life and think about, well, how did I plan that all out? Well, okay, I set a list and I, you know, did my shopping for Christmas and so on. So it's transferring those skills to other areas of your life that can be really helpful.
Hmm. Wow. Okay. Uh, yeah, I happened to just see on LinkedIn today, Harry Duran had posted something. He had done a post and he said that he read somebody say, and I can't remember who he was talking about, but they said procrastination is fear. Um, and that's really powerful. And just to think of when you were saying about procrastination, I was like, and then thinking about fear, I was like, oh man, it's really deep.
Yeah, this Canadian
Overcoming
researcher
fear.
did something called the procrastination equation. He talked about the idea of the length of the task and the importance. So fear comes into it as well. And again, this is sort of common sense stuff because people haven't measured it as such. But I'm putting this thing off because maybe I'm fearing that I'm going to fail, right? I'm not going to do well on that test, so I'll just delay it or making that sales call or asking that person out for a date or whatever. So we fear the consequences. And so one technique that we recommend to people is to visualize a positive outcome rather than a negative one. We also ask people, okay, what's the worst that could happen? So you have to call up and make a sales call, and we all sell things in one form or another. What's the worst that happens? Somebody says, no, I'm not interested. Okay, fine. It's not a reflection on you. It's a reflection that they didn't want to buy that thing.
Mhm.
So seeing the positive consequences and trying to understand those negative consequences, which are usually pretty small, if you can do that, then that helps reduce the anxiety, the fear, and allows people to move into action mode. So that's one way of overcoming procrastination.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Okay. And so you also wanted to talk about stress management, which is it's a whole different ballgame, sort of.
Yeah, there's a lot there, and I guess so what is stress, and maybe we'll do another show on that. But stress is our reactions to activities out there. So, something happens out there and our body reacts to it. We hear about the fight or flight syndrome. And the classic example is some predator is chasing after you. So what do? You fight it or do you flight it? And some people also suggest that you freeze. So interestingly, the body has all kinds of reactions. If you're going to prepare for fight, well, you better get some blood flowing. You better stop systems in your body that aren't needed, like digestion or sexual activity. You better create alertness in different ways. So the body changes how it works to be able to handle those stressful situations, fight or flight. The problem is you can't maintain that for long periods of time. And so if you maintain, if you're constantly, heart beating really fast and breathing deeply and so on, that's not good over the long haul. It's good for short stretches of time. And so when people are constantly stressed, that's going to break things down. And what happens is that it's not directly connected. So if you were doing a sport and you fall and twist an ankle, it hurts. And you relate, okay, I fell, ankle twist, hurt. You relate one to the other. But if you've got a headache today, or you didn't sleep well last night, you might not relate that to the fact that your boss yelled at you a week ago, or something went wrong. And so that people don't always make the direct connection. Oh, I'm just feeling irritable these days. Yeah, it's because of that pile up of stress, but they don't make that direct connection. So you have to become first aware of all those symptoms. And if your body is doing these strange things, headache or lack of sleep or being irritable, or if you're behaving differently, you're yelling at people or just not feeling yourself, it could be a stressful reaction, which is okay in the short term, but not sustained over the long period of time. So you can try and reduce those stressful inputs, get out of that situation, which is hard to do. You can't always stop your boss yelling at you.
Right.
But then there's some mitigating things you can do to take control of your life. And so I talk about some of those, about how you can better manage stressful reactions.
That's really helpful because I mean, when you were talking, just you mentioned that, if your boss yelled at you, like then every time you see your boss, you're going to be like, waiting for that to happen again, maybe. And so you're living in uh, that stress situation, like every time you're at work. And I get that. Sure.
We're all going to face stress. There's a scale of activities that are listed, and that create big stresses in our lives. Number one on the list is death of a spouse. But there's a whole pile of divorces, moving, getting arrested, graduating from school, all kinds of things. There's a list of about 80 or 90 of them. And those are the things in our lives that create stress. And everybody knows that. Oh, I had some renovations done and it, went horribly, or my kid is having trouble at school or whatever. So those are kind of one-off stressful situations. And some people have a number of those going on. They've got an aging parent they've got to take care of, but young kids as well that are causing them some difficulties, along with the work problems. And they got laid off from work or whatever. So all those things add up. And we're all going to face those. What I say is attend to the things you can control and let go of the things you can't control. So attend to the things you can control. Go to the doctor, take a course, eat better, plan your life better. There's a whole bunch of stress management things you can do. But there's also a lot of people get eaten up by things they can't control. And my best example, my late father got remarried after my mother died. And my siblings weren't too fond of the new spouse. And they got all eaten up about that. And I thought to myself, well, but I can't control that. If my father wants to get remarried and he feels he's in love and so on, we can give him a bit of advice on handling finances and so on. But if that's his choice, I can't control that. So I can't get eaten up over things that I can't control. And if you go on social media, there's a lot of people getting upset at a lot of things. So, whether it's politics or social issues or whatever, attend to things you can control. So volunteer for a political party or sign up for this or go to, volunteer in something. But some of those things you can't do much about. You have to let those go and not let them eat you up. And that's a good way of managing some of that stress in your life.
Okay. I mean, do you have suggestions how to do that though? That's because I mean, I feel I've sort of thought, and this is just my simple brain, but like when something stressful happens, I tend to take things personally and take it on. And I have a hard time letting it go.
Well, about a year ago, I decided to eliminate some words from my vocabulary, I guess. And the words are ridiculous, outrageous, offended. There's some others as well. But if you say to yourself, "Oh, that's ridiculous," "Well, that's outrageous," I mean, that's a kind of a visceral reaction to something that's out there that you really can't do much about. If you say to your spouse, "Hey, honey, I was upset because last night you said that thing and you did this thing." I mean, that's fair to say, and I'm really feeling hurt about that. But that thing that happened out there, that's outrageous. So that's ridiculous. There's, I, eliminate those words from your vocabulary. I don't use those words anymore. It's eating you up. Now, some people might say, "Oh, but I am feeling that way because that thing happened and I need some stress relief, and so I get mad." Well, all right. I suppose getting mad is a way of letting off steam. It's a way of relieving that buildup of tension in your
Right?
body. What I would say is find some other ways to do that. Do something physical, like, go for a run or play a squash game or a tennis game or something, or go for a bike ride or do something physical that allows you to let go of some of that energy rather than just letting it eat you up all the time.
Mm.
And that's a way of managing and mitigating that stress reaction. And don't use all those words. Um, Also, find the positive. It's really easy to be critical of things out there. Again, those are things we can't control. I'm saying let them go. How about turning that around upside down? And how about a little more kindness? So, what kind things did you do today? Who did you say thank you to? Who did you give a compliment to? What family member did you call up and tell them you're thinking of them? "Hi, honey, I was just thinking of you." Or buying a little gift for somebody or doing a little favor for somebody. So take that negative energy and turn it into positive energy with more kindness in our lives.
Oh, I really like that. Just, like you were saying, something that is in your control. Just m- focus on that. And so, when you're somewhere, say thank you or say have a great day or I
Yep.
hope you're doing okay. And that's awesome. I mean, it's so simple, but it's when you're in that like stress response or, feeling sorry for yourself or whatever. Sometimes it's hard to get out of that, but that's a really good thing to remember.
Here's one quick one. When you're driving, everyone gets eaten up. "Ah, that guy out there. Ah, that idiot out there." You can't change what that idiot does. And so, how do you let that go? But here's a neat driving tip. And not everybody agrees with this, but I've had one client who talked about this. They said, "Oh, it's making a difference." Every time you see an amber traffic light or a yellow light, orange light, I guess you call them, let's call them amber light, stop. Instead of hitting the gas and thinking, "I'm going to race through this thing," and most jurisdictions, you are supposed to stop unless you can't. But most people think that, "Oh, I got to race through the light." That just adds stress. So instead, stop. And people go, "Oh, the guy behind you is going to hit you." No, they don't. I've been doing this for years. So stop for amber lights. You're taking control of your car and your speed rather than letting it control you. And you know what? Your life starts to change. All of a sudden, you start letting people in front of you. You wait for a pedestrian to cross. You're thinking, I'm in control here. I'm going to be kind here, and I'm not going to let these yellow amber lights control my life. It's quite surprising how that little thing can make a real difference while you're driving and no one hits you from behind. So next time you're out driving, stop for amber lights. And if you don't, say, oh, I should have stopped for that one. You can tell yourself, and the next time you will. And keep doing that, your life starts to change and you become a more calm person.
Okay. So when you stop at a yellow light or an amber light, do you not look in your rear view mirror to make sure that they're not going to hit you from behind?
Um,
You just trust.
it ain't happened to me in 15 years, so no. People are hopefully keeping a good distance, and you're not jamming on the brakes. And if you really have to go through the one, maybe one out of 15, I'll go through because it's too late to stop. But 14 out of 15, I am stopping, and because I'm not going too fast to begin with. So if you're not going too fast, no one's going to hit you from behind. You're stopping gently. You're not jamming on the brakes.
Yeah.
So that's
I'm just being an antagonist.
give
Because
it a
I
try.
do. I totally do. I watch in the rear view mirror anytime I stop.
Yep.
My goodness. So this is fascinating, and I'm so thrilled to be able to share this, Mark. Is there a specific message that you wanted to leave everyone with? Like something that, just a thought to.
Well, one of your themes is sustainability. We need to sustain our lives. I don't want people to die young. And so think about how you're sustaining your life. And I guess the theme of what I talk about is take control of your time rather than letting it control you. You are in control. You have many more choices than you realize. Even if you're working a couple of jobs, even if you've got a family of kids all over the place, take control of things and make decisions rather than letting things affect you. That would be my general theme for people.
Take control of your time and not let it control you.
You bet.
I'm writing it down. Um, that's
And that
awesome.
traffic light thing is a good example of that. I'm in control here, I'm not letting that thing dictate what I do.
Awesome. So Mark, what does the word sustainability mean to you when I say it?
Well, as I mentioned, it's sustaining our own lives, and certainly I care about the planet as you do. I run walking tours in one of our parks here. I drive an electric car, so I think we can all do small things to take care of the planet. It's not about someone else. It starts right here at home. So follow all the advice that you talk about in your podcast, but also sustaining our own lives. I want to live to 111. And by being healthy, by living good, productive lives, I think we can all do that and find more joy today rather than some distant, far off time.
Hmm.
Find the joy in your life today. That's how you sustain your own happiness.
That's really powerful. I love that. And it's something that you hear or you read, but just to hear sometimes when you hear the words come out, it just means so much more. But find that joy today to enjoy.
It's not coming up in a month from now. Every day has some element of happiness. It's a smile. It's a nice favor you do for somebody. It's a family member. Like it's all there. We just need to celebrate it and amplify it and let all that other stuff go that you can't control.
And I'm curious about your walking tours. What are you showing like the plants or the
Yep, yes, it's here in Toronto. There's a large park called High Park, and every second Sunday we do walking tours. So we do plants and animals and the water systems, birds. I do one on architecture and trails in the park. So I run those, and that's a really great way to connect people and connect with them with nature at the same time.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Oh my gosh. I love that. And so, Mark, if somebody is listening to this and they're thinking, oh gosh, I need to learn more. Like I want to hear more of what Mark has to say. Like, how can someone find you and like follow and get more of that?
The easiest way, I don't have tens of dozens of different websites and so on, just one website called getmoredone.com. And there's a contact page. You can contact me through that, Mark at getmoredone.com. But getmoredone.com. It's full of, and there's lots of articles there and research and full of interesting information and tips. So people can contact me through that.
Getmoredone.com. I love it. You get that totally.
Yeah, my brand. Yeah.
Good one. Mark Ellwood, thank you so much. I'm so glad that we connected. I'm so glad that you have this wonderful message to share of just like taking doing what we can in the moment and doing what we can control. Just focus on that. Beautiful.
That's what it's all about, Amy. Thank you for allowing me to share some ideas today, and I hope those are of interest to your audience.
Absolutely. I'm very sure of that. Thank
Right.
you.